That didn't happen last time. It was a fun experience where I thought it was going live, but I forget to hit the button go live because apparently you have to do that. Even though it's getting a signal from AirMeet, it says, hey, hit the go live button. So I've done that. So now we are streaming. We are trying out using OBS. OBS is a platform that a lot of streamers use. We're doing that because my goal is to upgrade the quality of what we're doing here. You can see we have a new microphone. So again, if people can hear me, that's great. If folks can't hear me, well, that's just lame. Please let me know. Using OBS for microphone and for video because it allows me to put in delay. One of the things that you realize when you're doing things like this is the speed that the camera comes in is actually slower than the speed of the microphone. And so then you have to put in a delay and to make everything work out. And then you have to create a virtual camera. And then you take that virtual camera, and then that's what you use inside of programs like AirMeet, Google Meet, Twitch, whatever it may be. So that's what we're trying right now. But for those of you that have popped in, I definitely appreciate it. I'm going to type in the chat real quick here. If you can't hear me, please let me know because I can't hear myself since I'm talking through a microphone. Odd to stop talking. Recently did an Instagram story where I was talking about kind of the difficulty of being someone who has ADD, which I do have, and talks really, really, really quick, and how to you out there who are watching this, I may seem like I'm talking really fast, but in my brain, it's like I'm walking through mud or trying to swim in molasses. It's just this, oh my gosh, I'm going so slow. Now, on deck today, we're not necessarily covering any one particular entrepreneur's product, but or a company. But if somebody pops in, I'm very much happy to work with you. We can get that done too. It's going to work either way. But it's seeming like this is an organic situation, right? And let's think of this as a good lesson for entrepreneurs. You've got to pivot. If you think you have a goal, if you think you have a plan, and it's going to be successful, it may not be. And what you want to do actually may not work. And so initially the whole plan was, okay, well, we'll help out one individual per hour, work on their product. But the issue is that created a lot of anxiety for me because suddenly I'm waiting for people to show up, and I don't want to wait for people to show up. I want to get going, and I want to be able to have fun. I also like how my camera wants to keep focusing on this poster in the background. So to go from autofocusing on my face to autofocusing on the girl from the Superman poster that's behind me. So I got to be careful about that. So apologies when that happens. Maybe I'll figure that out eventually too. But anyway, I'm having a lot of fun just designing. That's what I do. I mean, I do a lot of other stuff as well. But I like to design and I'm pretty good at it. And so there's so much stuff that people don't even think about when it comes to design that it's kind of a cool thing for us just to get into that and start going. But in regards to entrepreneurs, you do have to pivot, right? So you can have a plan and you want to follow that plan. But then in reality, what happens is that your users, which are everybody who's watching this or involved with this or who got the email, decide they want a different product. They want things to work a little differently. And so that's cool. Now we're going to pivot. If we have folks who want to engage and actually get up on stage, we'll keep it here on AirMeet. There is some thoughts maybe to being on more of a streaming platform, say maybe Twitch, potentially YouTube or something similar. I definitely want to be on Facebook and YouTube, so we could keep it in AirMeet, or if I can find a way to live stream to both of those places at the same time. So we'll see about that. If you have any thoughts on where you would like to see a streaming situation, let me know. But I would say this will definitely be a progression, a growth over time of what I'm doing. Hopefully the camera will upgrade, the sound should upgrade. Maybe, if we're lucky, we'll start to see some cool visual graphics on screen. To be upfront, I just have not had time to figure out how to do that. There's ways in OBS to do it. If you watch Twitch, if you watch YouTube, you see all these cool things that happen, right? Like stuff popping up and bling, bling, bling. People are in the chat talking, stuff's happening. And you got to figure out how to do all that stuff. So that's an education route that I have to take, because you can't just design it and expect it to show up. You got to go through the OBS software and figure out how to get things in place and then connect APIs. It's a whole bunch of stuff. And there are lots of great tutorials out there on YouTube on how to do this, but it just does take the time to make it happen. So what I wanted to do was maybe focus a little more on the mobile software side of things rather than the desktop side of software. In the previous episodes of Free Design Hour, I almost called it Q and Answers. I did Q and Answers for over a year. So in my brain, this timeline, this time spot is very much considered Q and Answers. But it's not. It's Free Design Hour. So here at Free Design Hour, we spent a lot of time talking about web, 1280 by 720, Windows, folds, micro interactions, what works here, what works there. And I thought, you know what, it'd be nice to actually shift it up a little bit and maybe focus on mobile some, because, hey, we're all doing mobile. And even if you don't have a mobile app, if you have a website, it's got to be mobile responsive, or what I like to call is mobile badass. Just being mobile responsive doesn't work, right? You need to have a really great experience on mobile that doesn't just feel like everything got shrunk from the desktop down to mobile size. You need to think about, well, how does mobile work? What are the conventions of mobile software? What do people expect mobile software to do? Where do they expect navigation to be? Right? How do they expect cards to work? Scrolls, loading. How much do they expect to be on a screen? I'll give you a prime example. One of the things that we often get from folks when they want to go mobile is a drop down. They'll say, hey, so I want to have this list, this item, this thing be collapsed. And when you click it, or tap it, sorry, if you do it with your finger, it's a tap. I want it to expand out. In theory, that sounds good. Why doesn't it work? Well, because in reality, what happens is when I expand a menu, I lose where I'm at. I get shifted up and down on the product. I don't know where I'm at. And then I got to get disoriented because of that. It's a bad mobile experience. Accordions, which is a menu that pops open like an accordion, those things are really cool on the desktop, but they feel bad on mobile. And so we don't really use them. Instead, what you would do is, on a mobile application, opening a menu would open up an overlay, or it would slide over to a new screen and give you just the items you needed for that menu, let you choose your option, and then you move back to the previous place you were. That feels right on mobile. Accordions don't feel right. And whenever you're in a mobile app or you're in a mobile responsive website and they have an accordion, you know they haven't thought through the Apple HIG, the human interface guidelines. They haven't thought through the Android guidelines. They haven't maybe played with a lot of mobile apps, because Airbnb doesn't do that. Instagram doesn't do that. Not even Facebook does that. And Facebook's got a whole bunch of junk going on, right? So with that, I probably should introduce myself, because I've just started rambling here. I tend to do that. My name is Q Manning. I'm the general manager and founder of Rock Sauce. And Rock Sauce is what are we? We're a digital product agency. We build stuff, man. We build mobile apps, we build websites, we build action figures, we've done books, brochures. I mean, basically, if you're a client and you have a problem that's design related, you come to us, or software related, and we'll help you out. Sometimes we just dev stuff. Sometimes we don't even get to touch the UX and UI. We just do the development. And then sometimes we just work on the UX and UI and don't even touch the dev. So it's kind of everything in between. It's whatever our customers need us to do. Our major focus is, can we make it worth a damn? Can we make people actually want whatever the hell this is we're trying to build? Sometimes that'll just be UX, UI, but a lot of times it comes back to feature sets, strategy, having product market fit, right? Making sure you're building the right type of thing. And so that's sort of where we're going to start going down those roads today, because it's not just about creating an application. It's about creating the right application that's going to solve a problem for a consumer in a way that they actually want that problem to be solved. Think about some of your favorite software. Again, we come back to Airbnb, we come back to Instagram. There are other places that do what those products do. I mean, the dating world, right? I mean, that's one of my favorite stories, because I was working on products. So as a development agency who's built a lot of stuff, I mean, literally 300 projects at this point, we're always being brought ideas and things to do. And one of the big ideas that people loved to come to us with was this concept of a dating app, right? They wanted a dating app. We were in development. Let's just be clear. We were in development of design, not actual development as in coding, but development as in UX, UI, strategy, research, that type of stuff. We were in development on a few different concepts for dating apps when Tinder came along. Tinder completely changed the world. It was like discovering the world was round, y'all. It was so different. Because before then, the way pretty much every dating application worked was a grid of people. So you'd log into the application, and what you'd get was a grid. And the grid would usually be geo-proximity based. So I'm at this location, and I want to see who's nearby that I want to date. Which that concept is funny anyway to me. I mean, who wants to date just based on proximity, right? You want to find somebody who's going to match you. I would think you would, whatever. But they show this grid, and you'd see people nearby. And what would happen is you'd go from top left, that person was the closest, down to bottom right, or keep scrolling, and then those people would be the furthest away. Conceptually, it makes a lot of sense. Visually, dynamically, engagingly, it's not very exciting. I mean, it's a grid. It's a grid of people's faces. So Tinder came along and didn't really change anything about the core dating app concept. I mean, nothing Tinder does wasn't being done by Match, OkCupid, any of the hookup apps that were out there. But instead they thought, you know what? We have an idea. What if we changed the way you interact with each individual person? What if we treated each individual person as a person? And we made the user decide right then and there, on the spot, do I, as somebody in the dating pool, do I want to engage with that individual? And then, how can I make that a fun, exciting, and engaging exercise? Now, this is not inside baseball. I don't know anything about how Tinder was developed. I don't know any of the details about what designs fell through, what they chose not to go forward with. But I can almost guarantee you there are versions of Tinder that have like and dislike buttons right on the screen, right? Just they're there. And somebody, and the fact that we don't know who this person is one of the grand, what's the word here I'm looking for? Sometimes I blank on words. I guess downsides, but atrocities. There we go. It's one of the grand atrocities of the design world. And that's the anonymity of designers, right? Because along the way, somebody had this brilliant idea of, well, what if I had my mobile app and instead of hitting yes or no, right? What if I swiped left or right? Like I drug the card left to right based on how I felt about them. They tried that out with users, and clearly users loved it. And that was their app. And so that was the real change they made. Sometimes what you do differently isn't necessarily your algorithm your tone of voice, some other secret financial sauce you have. Sometimes what differentiates you as a product and makes you rise above all the rest is an interface. Because what they realized pretty quickly was this creates sort of an ASMR kind of a thing, right? Like we're giving a moment of satisfaction. We're giving users a really powerful dopamine rush, because there's just a get it done kind of thing that happens when you drag those cards left to right, because you're accomplishing a task and you're doing it in a very physical way. It's not just looking at somebody and scrolling past them. It's making that choice and it's interacting with them directly. Also makes that a little bit more vital, a little more important. It adds some weight to just discarding somebody, because it's not a matter of scrolling past them, which is very passive. Scrolling past something, you don't get more passive than that. You just kind of glance at it. Choosing to put them in a bucket is a whole different story. And so that created a different mechanism in your brain. What happened after that? Pretty much every mobile application that was related to dating adopted that capability. I've got a direct message here. Doop. Oh, it's just the nice people at AirMeet telling me, hey, if I need some help, they got some help here for me. That's great. One of the great things about AirMeet, again, I like AirMeet a lot. Don't really necessarily have a desire to move away from it. My goal is just to make things easy as possible for everybody. And I don't, know if AirMeet's the best platform if I'm just talking to the ether. If I'm just, talking to everybody out there. Live chats can happen in lots of places, but we'll see. Anyway, so that brings us back to your product and a mobile strategy. Most likely your idea has already been figured out. I mean, there's not much new under the sun in 2020 when it comes to concepts and markets. There are some new products that get released and people go, wow, I never thought ever about that. But in general, it's about creating the better mousetrap, to use the old adage. It's about finding a better way to help you accomplish both your goals. And some of the ways that we can do that are interface. Some of them are tone, strategy, that type of thing. And so I definitely wanted to take some time to talk about how do you find out if you're building the right thing, right? You're an entrepreneur, or to be upfront, you're an intrapreneur. Companies have to be careful. The world of business is littered with the corpses of companies who did not take their competition seriously. They were at the top of their game. They thought, well, we're the bosses. We make the bajillions of dollars. Nobody is going to bother to beat us. Nobody can topple us. And then they get toppled because it's not about how much you want to stay on top. It's about whether or not people give a hell about what you're doing. And if you're offering a product and somebody else is offering a product or a better product, people can sometimes tend to move to that better product. And so if you are an existing business, if you're a market leader and you're not disrupting yourself, you're failing. I mean, I don't want to be harsh with you, but that's the truth. You've got to, you need to have a skunk works internal. You need to have people inside your company whose job it is to be thinking like an entrepreneur would think. Like, okay, this is your domain: construction, recipes, sales, automation, marketing automation, graphic design, dating, whatever it is. This is our milieu, right? This is our box. But your job is to come up with a better way to do it, completely disconnected from over here, which is our core product offering that we give. Can we do it in a better way? Because that better way is vital. Because somebody else out there saw that you're making money. They said, man, this CRM is making a ton of cash. This project management software is making a ton of money. And I don't really like it that much. It doesn't do much for me. It doesn't work very well. It doesn't do what I want it to do. I have a better idea. Maybe I can make a better version. So that's what they do. They take their core concepts, they find whatever secret thing's going to make them better: interface, tone of voice, demographic, genre, specific niche, whatever it is that's going to differentiate them from the rest. And they go down that road. Companies who are at the top have to do this. You don't have a choice, because if you don't, you're going to lose. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but some entrepreneur is going to go out there and make a better version of what you're doing that just works better, that people like using more. And they're going to raise funds, and they're going to suddenly be able to compete with you on marketing dollars, and they're going to be more nimble because they don't have customers that already exist, so they don't have to worry about upsetting anybody. And then suddenly they're there, and they're taking complete control, and you find yourself in the second or third or fourth spot. And if you don't adapt, you won't regain the first position. You won't even get a second or third position. You'll end up like Kodak, and they're probably one of the largest cautionary tales we can think of, right? Or Xerox, Kodak or Xerox. Kodak had, and I apologize for forgetting the individual's name because he was a genius, but he came up with the concept of the digital sensor for a camera. Like, he had a digital camera sensor, and he created one, and he came to the execs at Kodak and said, hey, look what I've done. You don't have to buy film. You have to go to a dark room. You have to wait a week for your stuff to come back. You can take a picture and get it immediately digitally and have thousands of them. And Kodak went, no, that's not our business. Our business is film. We sell the camera secondarily to our real product, which is film. And film's never going away. Well, film is still here for niche people, but hell, vinyl's still here, right? Like, people still listen to records. But is the vast majority of photographers taking photography on film? No, they use digital photography. And it changed the whole world. And other people came up and they took charge. Now, there were companies at the beginning of the digital camera revolution who are now gone because they couldn't keep rolling with the time. So it's a constant thing. Famously, Xerox had a mouse, right? They had a graphical user interface. They had the concept of Windows. They had all the cool stuff that we have on Windows and Mac right now. And some folks at Xerox said, yeah, but why do we need this? We sell copy machines. That's what we do. Nobody wants this. This is a game. This is a toy. And so both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates went in, saw what they did, and said, well, okay, cool. You're going to let me in. I'm just going to rob you. And they did. And they created better versions of what Xerox was doing. So right now, instead of me operating on a Mac, I could be operating on a Xerox computer, right? So as an entrepreneur, you got to be thinking about that. You got to be thinking of those things. How am I going to disrupt the market? What's going to make me different? How am I going to win? And you can do that in a lot of different ways. So you can do it with your audience, your approach, your niche, or your interface. Sometimes you can do it with marketing dollars, but that's a little bit tougher because that requires money. And that's not just an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur sitting within a company or their garage and trying to figure out an answer. That requires somebody to invest in you. And usually the money comes after you've already proven that you can accomplish your goals. So what we're going to do, now that I am 23 minutes in, is I've kind of talked about the strategy of stuff, and now we're going to get into some actual design. So I'm going to open up Figma, and we're going to start playing with some mobile stuff. And if anybody in chat has any ideas about maybe an application direction or what they're thinking of, that's great. If not, I'll come up with one. I have not pre-gamed necessarily too much because it's sort of fun to fall and just kind of grab onto what comes along, because that creates some really cool stuff. One of the things that a lot of designers will tell you is they can never estimate for playtime. And that's real, because you may have an idea of what you want for a logo or for an interface or for design. And you'll design it up. You think it's good. You'll drag something over accidentally, right? Just accidentally click and hold. And suddenly you look at it and go, oh shit, that's amazing. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I never thought about doing that. Wow, that's cool. Happy accidents, right? So sometimes accidents make some of the coolest stuff. So we're kind of free falling here. But again, if anybody has any ideas about what they may want to see, if anybody has any cool concepts of maybe an application that they could be cool, that's awesome. And again, I have no idea if you can hear my voice or if it even sounds good. Hopefully, because I've bought a fancy microphone, it sounds better than it has been sounding. And with that, I hope that you'll let me know if it's not. That'd be really helpful for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. And if you see me shift my head, it's because I got a big microphone in front of me. And I got to find these little buttons. So I'm going to share my screen. Yes, it's that time. And we're going to go to an application window. Where is my Figma? I've had this problem recently, actually. It's kind of frustrating. When I was in OBS last night testing some stuff out, it lets you bring in different applications and have them on the screen. And Figma wasn't showing up. Everything else was. I mean, when I say everything, y'all, I mean everything is considered a window, apparently, by Mac. Like all your navigation at the top, right? You see at the top, you have your notification items, like the search box and the date and time. That's considered a window. So on OBS, I could actually just choose that as a window, which is kind of crazy. But I wasn't able to get Figma. It took me restarting it a couple of times to try to get to it. And now that I'm sitting here in AirMeet, it's not showing up. So I'm going to real quickly restart my Figma. Just give it an opportunity, right? Hopefully it'll show up. If not, I'll just share my whole desktop. I try to avoid doing that because resolution problems. I mean, it's pretty high res. Got the 4K or 5K iMac, whichever one it is. And so I want to make sure people can read what we're doing. CPLs get frustrated with all the stuff that just starts up automatically when you start up your computer. Like in the Mac, there's supposed to be an area in your user area that fixes that. It's supposed to be the startup items, and you're supposed to be able to go in and remove stuff. I've been in there a dozen times. Spotify is not listed there. But every time I restart my computer, guess what's there? Spotify. I love Spotify, but damn. Also need to figure out how to get music going. That'd be kind of cool, right? Having some music in the background, find some open source music we can use. That'd be nice. All right, so I've reopened Figma. Open up my free design hour file. Come over here, application window, and it's still not there. So I'm just going to choose an entire screen. So I've had to do this before. So I'm going to choose screen 1. And now I think we're about to get that amazing Windows into eternity situation. We're going to find out. All right, so we should be sharing a screen right now. Yeah, I want to hide. I don't want to show that. Okay. But go away. Okay. So now hopefully we're sharing our screen to folks. That's from last week's fun times we had. So here we are, and we are in Free Design Hour number 1.4. So I'm going to take this link. I'm going to copy it. Anyone with the link can view. Got to be careful with that because we had a problem where, as much as I love Figma, they were we had some people who were considered to be editors, and we were paying for their accounts, and they were just folks who had accessed the file here on Free Design Hour, and it's kind of funny. So I'm going to paste this file into the chat on AirMeet. I'm going to come over here. Can I don't even know anything about Facebook live streaming. I've never really done it, so I don't know if I can. It looks like I can't, so that's fine. Whatever. But I know I can on YouTube. So on YouTube over here, I'm going to paste this into the live chat. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there you go. Now you have a link as well. So hopefully that works out for you. Cool. All right. So now we're here. Okay. First thing we want to do, we want to create our page. We're going to call this Our Mobile App. Again, anybody have any ideas in regards to what type of mobile app we should do? I kind of want to challenge because I don't want to do something I've done before. So if anybody has any ideas, let me know. I'm going to create some artboards here real quick. So you're going to hit F. That opens up this little menu over here you see on the right. And actually, to make sure things are more legible, let me do this. So I am one of those individuals who very much uses Command Space for pretty much everything I do. I find that to be a much easier way of moving around macOS. So because I like to, I just always want to put the first frame that we do here is 0, 0. But that's not what I want to do, actually. I want to hit F, and I want to choose a phone resolution. So over here on the right side in Figma, you have some pre-existing phone resolutions. Which one should you use? Well, there's always a decent argument for lowest common denominator, right? Going with iPhone SE, but I don't want to right now. I'm going to choose, say, the iPhone 11 Pro Max. That is a mouthful. Okay. So, what kind of mobile application do we want to do? What are we interested in? I mean, do we want to do a dating app? Do we want to do a check-in app? I mean, when's the last time there was a different check-in app? Is that even something people do anymore? I used to religiously use Swarm all the time. Before that, it was GoWalla. I used to use Swarm constantly. Then it was Foursquare. Then it was GoWalla. And I don't find myself checking in like I used to anymore. So I don't do a check-in app. What if we decided... So right now, something that's really hot are these applications that are all about little microbursts of stuff, right? So we had Vine. Vine was rocking for a while. Twitter got rid of it. Then TikTok came out and sort of took Vine's thunder. And all the success that TikTok is having, that could have been Vine, but hey, they didn't see the potential there. But this concept of you're messing around, you're having fun, sharing your general stuff, videos, that type of thing. Let's just create that kind of an app. So it's just going to be a social app, right? So let's just do that. We're going to create a social app of some kind. Okay. So I'll go back to sharing my entire screen here. Okay. So we're going to call this our social app. So this would be what's called a launch screen. Why is it called a launch screen? Well, because at the beginning of the when apps were being made, it took a while for an app to load. Phones weren't nearly as fast as they are today, y'all. So we'd actually have to create a launch screen that would be there before the actual application loaded up. And sometimes we'd have to mimic what that first screen would look like. So if it had form fields or things like that, we tried to make the launch screen look that way. It was a funny thing. Anyway, so we still call it launch screen because why the heck not, right? But okay. So we have a launch screen. So what do we want our app to be? Well, let's put in some ideas here. We want it to be a social app. And I am using Helvetica New for a lot of cool products right now. I don't know why. I'm digging it. So I'm going to use it here as well. And the rule of eights, as we've talked about in Figma and Find Out Fridays or Figma Fridays, as we talked about in a previous episode of Free Design Hour, rule of eights. Make things divisible by 8 so they always look nice. Icons are 64, 32, 16, that type of thing. Fonts, 16, 24, so on. So it's a social app. Okay? And what's it going to have in it? Well, it'll have video, for sure. You got to have video in 2020. We're going to allow photos? No. Just GIFs, right? And yes, I said GIF, not GIF, not a giraffe. It's a graphical. Graphics is the first word. Clearly, you saw I forgot the rest of if, right? So I think it's graphical interface format. It could be interchange format, interactive format, I format, intuitive format. Who knows? I forgot what the I means. It happens. Maybe you can have GIFs. That'd be kind of cool, right? None of these apps will let you do that. That'd be kind of neat. Is if you could design up or do your TikTok-y, do your dancey moves, whatever it is. And the next thing that happens is I can send it out as a GIF. because I know that when I'm responding on social media, Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is, I love responding with GIFs. The Face app that came out, or the Reface app that came out that lets you put your face on a hero's body, say Matthew McConaughey or Hulk Hogan or whatever, that app tickles the hell out of me because I love putting my face on all my favorite meme GIFs and then using those instead of the meme GIFs. I'm wondering if anybody notices that I've done it, but it's a lot of fun for me. But I like to respond with GIFs. So today, if I was going to make, as far as like when my own personal loves and likes are, we're going to make a social media app that was video based. I don't want to give the ability to create GIFs. Now, whether that's allowing you, a user who's watching me, a dancer or comedian or whatever it is, to make a GIF of me, I don't know that yet. Probably, but I'm not certain yet. Okay. It says friends and sharing. Okay. Block list. You don't even want to know why you want a block list, but you want a block list. The number of apps that have had photographs that people did not want in them and they stuck around too long because they did not have a block list factored in because nobody thought during the strategy feature phase. There were too many. It's a lesson we all had to learn. So you want a block list. You'll have a user profile, obviously. Now, we're not going to create all these. We don't have that much time left. But I'm going through this because you need to think about what it is you need in an application. What are things you're thinking of? Messaging, right? Do you want to allow people to message? Now, that's a question because you can have direct messages. You can have submittal messages, right? So whatever content I've submitted, you can message me there, or you can have both, or you can have one or the other. It's kind of up to you. But we'll just put messaging, so messages. Now, is there any kind of niche we want to deal with? Is there any kind of thinking we have in regards to that? Do you want to make it politics-based? The election season is heating up, right? So what if we did that? What if we made it political-based? Why not? This isn't a real app. I'm not actually trying to go out and see who's going to be in this application. So it's going to be a political app. So it's going to be a political messaging. So what's our overall goal then? We have a political app that's social. The goal, in it, you can create videos and GIFs. What else can we do? It's a political app. What if we allowed people to use a TikTok kind of a thing to create get out the vote / political ads / testimonials as to why they were voting for who they were voting for, right? So we'll put get out the vote, political ads / who I'm voting for. Okay. Now, at that, who's it for? Who isn't voting? Young people. Young people don't vote. That if you're young and you're watching this and you vote, hey, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the young people in general, the broad demographic that doesn't vote. Now, here in cold Texas, for those of you who don't know, it's like 38 degrees in Texas right now. And that's really cold for October. It's so cold. That's why I'm wearing a sweater. But here in Texas, apparently the youth vote is up way more than it's ever been in our history, which is so exciting because as cheesy as it sounds, the children are the future and they're going to inherit whatever it is we're building. So us folks that are now millennials, who were rocking out to Pro Jam in high school, we have to give way to younger folk who are going to come in and run the country. And the people that are above us that are older than us, well, they got to cede to us and we've got to cede to them. And the decisions that are made today have a massive impact for everybody in the future, right? You reap what you sow. Now, that's not to say Republicanism or liberalism is right or wrong. I have my own opinions. I'm not going to say that because it can be bad for business. If you know me, you know my opinions. But either way, you have to set the foundation for the future. And so because of that, the youth is important. We want to get the youth to vote. So let's say 18, maybe even younger, actually. I'll tell you why in a second. So 16 maybe, right? To 30. Because when you get over 30, you're pretty much voting anyway. A lot of people are. Okay. So why did I choose 16 instead of 18? Because you may be thinking, well, Q, 16-year-olds can't vote, man. Did you know that? Yeah, I know that 16-year-olds can't vote. But elections happen every year. And we don't just want to inspire people at this moment. We want to inspire a culture, right? If our goal here is to build a product that's going to last for more than, say, a season or a month, we want that to happen. So we want to we want to inspire folks to go out and vote on a regular. So starting younger and appealing to them is a good thing. Okay. So this is right now our app. It's a social app, does video, GIFs, friends and sharing, block list. I mean, that's a small feature, but it's important. Profile, messaging, political app, get out the vote, political ads, who I'm voting for. Now, when I say political ads, what do I mean? I mean, like, I'm talking to the camera. Hey, this is Q. I hope you're doing okay. Just want to let you know that I think you need to vote for Rick McGillicuddy because he is the best. And maybe after I leave my message, offering them some sort of pre-built template, Snapchat style, that pop up, right, with get out the vote, or voting day is this way, or register today, or right, allow them to put on some on-screen graphics or link to fundraising. That's a cool feature, right? What if we could allow the users to do on-screen? Now, see, this is obviously a much longer set of words than just social app video, whatever, but this is getting into some very nitty-gritty features. But these are some of the cool things that you start thinking down. So what if we allowed the user to do on-screen donation solicitations for the politicians he supported? I won't do politicians. I'll do politicians' causes they support. Because do we really want to limit it? Do we want it to just be you can only have a political ad about a person? Like maybe is it just a cause? Maybe you really care about veganism, or you really care about Black Lives Matters, or maybe you really care about the right to life, or whatever it is, the right to work, pro-life, whatever your specific passions are. That's okay. That's you. It makes you who you are. And maybe you want to solicit support for that. So that'd be a cool thing, because I can't think of a lot of products that do that. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a reason people don't do that. Again, that's what the next phase will be, which we're not going to do here because I have no time for market research, y'all. But maybe that's what we can do. So allow the users to do on-screen donation solicitations for the politicians or the causes they support. Awesome. Cool. And that'd be like a link into websites. Act Blue, Act Red. I don't know if there's a thing called Act Red. I've heard of Act Blue, but I don't know if there's an Act Red, but whatever it is. Okay. And quick upload to other networks. Now that's kind of a pipe dream. APIs are very difficult, but it'd be really cool if you could quickly upload the video you make to YouTube or somewhere else, because we want to piggyback off of the success. Now, I know there's some thought here that goes, well, Q, don't you want to keep all the content in our app? Like, don't you want people to have to come to our app to see this stuff? Well, sure, eventually, but right now, I don't have any users. A lot of times at Rock Sauce, when I'm working with a customer, I bring up this issue. It's a phrase I like. It's called Day 1 versus Day 365. Day 1 versus Day 365. Day 1, ain't nobody in your app. Nobody's there. Got no content. It's a wasteland, right? It's just the people that tested the product and built the product trying to do whatever to get people involved. And then you have Day 365, hopefully, which is a year into the application, where are things at, how much content's there, that type of stuff. And that's a whole different world than Day 1. And you need to factor both into your equation. You need to know, what is it going to look like the first time somebody comes in? How are they going to get involved? What are they going to do? How are we going to get people to use it? Because this isn't Field of Dreams. Just because you built it doesn't mean they will come. There was a time on the App Store when that was the case. There was the Diamond app that people spent a whole lot of money on. Why? Because there was no other apps out there, and it was really cool to show, hey, I've got an iPhone, and I have a really expensive app called the Diamond app. But those days aren't really there anymore. There are millions of apps that people can be using. And so how do people find out about you? Reason I bring that up? Well, because we probably want to let people share our stuff to other networks, and we want to watermark it, right, or link back to our product with that, because that will drive traffic and that'll help people discover us. Then later on down the line, we can pull that. I know that's dirty, but they did it. I think about Medium a lot. Actually, Medium's a cool platform for blogging. It's got a lot of domain authority, which means that Google loves it, and it gives, if somebody writes an article on Medium, that article would typically show up higher in search results because it has domain authority. It's considered an authority. Initially, Medium understood that you want to share your stuff everywhere because they needed to build their audience. They needed people to actually use what the hell they were building. But now, even their WordPress plugins are antiquated, right? They've deprecated. They can't use them anymore, right? You can try, but there's no guarantee they're going to work with each version of WordPress that comes out because Medium realized, all right, we've now reached a level of success that we are a destination product. People seek us out automatically. We have enough content out in the world that people are sharing it, that they can get back to it. So eventually our product will get there, but it's not there on day one. And so if we can capitalize on any other kind of sharing we would want to, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, we want to share that content out there, right? So we're going to do that. I want a real quick look to make sure. Here we go. We're good to go. All right. Boom. Okay. So we have a social app. Now, this is a pretty solid features list, y'all. I mean, if you came to me with this features list, I'd be like, heck yeah, cool. Love it. And we start working through what it's going to be. The next phase for any real entrepreneur is going to be market research. So you have these ideas. Now you need to go out there and say, okay, well, would anybody actually buy this app? Would anybody actually use this, download it, play with it? That I don't know. Pretty much everybody has tried getting out the vote. They've tried to find interesting ways to make people feel like it was important to vote, to see the value of it. When I was in college, I tried my own things. I tried a sarcastic methodology of dressing up like Uncle Sam, looking very gross and untidy, and saying that I want you to be apathetic, disengaged, blah, blah, blah. Meaning that there are people in power who don't want you to vote. And that's true. There are people in power that are there specifically because a lot of folks aren't voting. So how do we get people who don't find voting to be cool at all to vote? This could be a way. I don't know. Vote or die, rock the vote, all the different stuff that's been out there, all the other get out the vote campaigns haven't necessarily been successful. Okay. So, all right. So here we are. We have a social media app. So let's start playing with colors. Now, would I typically start playing with colors now? No, I would be doing UX. So to show you what that would mean, it would mean, okay, so my first screen is going to be a launch screen, and then I'm going to have a login screen. And then I'm going to have, actually, that's not true. That is there's a time we would have done that, but then I'm going to have my onboarding flow, which is so vitally important that I hope we get to it. Then you'll have your login screen where you actually say, okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity to log in. Now, through this list, so we're going to call this our features list. For this list, we're also going to have from there's the simple fact that you need to know how things are done, right? Like, can I get into this app? Not logging in? To what networks and I use for login. Right? And then other questions come up along the way. One other quick thing here, and you know what, I'm not going to apologize, because honestly, I think entrepreneurship is vitally important, and I think people need to know how to build products. And so I'm very happy to talk about the product building side of stuff and not spend as much time on design, because frankly, what I'll do is next week we'll continue this. And that could be fun. I mean, you don't necessarily always get to a final design in something like this when there's so much to go on and there's so much information I want to impart. But part of the way you think about product building is a hierarchy of buckets for users and buckets for stories, bucket for features. So typically goes theme, right? And then you have what's called an epic, which is beneath theme. And then you have user personas. Well, you have user stories really, but a user story is attached to a user persona usually, but it can apply to multiple folks. Then you have specific execution or features, right? And these all work one after the other. Hierarchy. Theme, epic, user persona, specific execution of features. So how does this break down? So a theme would be login. You got to log into an app. Epic is Facebook, right? So you log in with Facebook. Another epic could be Google, login. Twitter, login, right? And then inside of that, you have different personas of who they're going to be. Maybe instead of a user persona, you'll have we know our user persona are 16 to 30. A specific user persona would be a 16-year-old interested in voting. And then maybe we'll shake it up a little bit and go a 19-year-old not interested in voting. Those are two completely different personas. Then you have user stories, right? So as a user, ... ellipses, I want to log in with Facebook. And then I said specific execution and features. This can also be called this is the real way acceptance criteria. Much better term for it. Developers and designers and clients and users need to know that this is the way it's going to work. So at a specific acceptance criteria would be I see the user Facebook login option, the Facebook login overlay pops up, right? I log in with my credentials. I am then taking to the account creation screen. Cool. So that would be some stuff. And of course, along the way, you'd have some additional stuff, right? Like you can start to talk about transitions. Account creation screen will fade in from the bottom, that type of stuff, right? Because that stuff is useful to have and can definitely inform the design, things like that. But that's the way that products typically work. Theme, epic, user persona, user stories, acceptance criteria. Now, again, user stories can sometimes apply to both or to every single possible user persona out there, and that's fine. And some user stories will only apply to specific user personas. And so it isn't necessarily part of the hierarchy, the user persona, but it's part of the whole kit and caboodle. Okay. So our UX flow, launch screen, onboarding flow, which is going to be way more than one screen. And there's a lot of different ways you can do onboarding. And I think that we'll probably get pretty deep into onboarding in the next free design hour, because I think that's really cool. And we'll talk about a couple of different ways to do it. And I'll be able to refer back to this video for anybody who's curious about what else there is on how you build a product. So a launch screen? Well, that's typically going to be a logo. So if I'm doing UX, and over here, real quick, UX, I'm just going to put this is the UX version of this instead of the UI version of this. So this is going to be our logo. We're going to center it. Boom. It's not a very good logo. I understand. But you don't necessarily want to go straight into design. Why? When you start worrying about design right off the bat, what happens is you start to prejudice your eventual audience. So you're choosing colors, you're choosing fonts, you're choosing button styles, things like that. And that may not resonate at all with who your users are. It may not help them get their goal done. And so instead of them looking at, well, does the launch screen flow into a really good onboarding flow that actually helps me understand how to use the product, flow into the next piece of the application, to the login, to help me understand why I should actually log in. Does all that make sense? Or do I just really hate these colors? And so I can't even judge that, right? Because I just really hate pink or really hate red or green. So when you want to figure out the flow of your product, it's always better to do it in UX, user experience, wireframes that are typically black and white, blue and white, green and white, whatever. Rock Sauce, we tend to do them blue and white because we used to call them blueprints, like it was a blueprint for a house. And so blue and white made a lot of sense, right? So I'll choose the color blue just for that purpose. Look at that. So there we go. We have a logo. That's our logo. You'll then have an onboarding flow. Now, this is the point in which in a flow, you've got to decide based on your business needs, am I letting people in early or am I making them log in? If you make them log in, what's likely to happen? People are going to bounce. They just aren't going to engage because now you put a gateway in front of them. And so they go, I don't know if I actually care enough about this product to log in. I don't know if it really matters to me that much. And so they don't. And then they just delete the application. So what you sort of want to do, in my expert opinion, is you want to give them a taste of something. If you use an incognito tab and you go to Instagram.com and you pull up somebody's feed, say Kim Kardashian, say Shepard Fairey, Barack Obama, whoever, you pull up their feed, you'll get a certain amount of way down the feed before it says, hey, do you want to log in or create an Instagram account? If you try to click in and actually look at a feed or a certain individual, you get the same kind of a thing. Basically, they're giving you enough of it to know, okay, this is a worthwhile endeavor. This is a cool product. This is what you're going to get out of this. You should take the time to give us an account. And it's always my opinion that you should do that whenever possible. We want to grab their accounts as soon as we can, but if you ask for it too early, it doesn't help. I mean, it actually ends up driving users away. And so you want to get them when they're ready to engage. And they're ready to engage once they've understood the value. Now, you may think, but I'm not asking them for money. I'm not asking them to pay anything for this product. It's free. I've dedicated all my time and effort into it. So the least they could do is give me their username and password, give me an account, an email, that type of thing. But that has value. I mean, think how much spam you get on a day-to-day basis. Right now, I'm going through probably third time this year, I'm going through the unsubscribe rodeo, where I unsubscribe to all the stuff that I don't really care about that just fills up my inbox constantly. My email is valuable because that's my time and my effort. So I don't want to give everybody that information. So you show me why you're useful. You give me great content. You state your case and show why it is that you matter. And then you're more likely to get a user to sign up, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, that doesn't mean that happens before an onboard flow because you still need to explain to people how a product actually works. And then eventually, so we'll go back here. Instead of this being called a login screen, we'll call it main feed, right? Now, I don't know what's going to be inside the onboarding flow. We're going to talk about that moving forward. But this will then be our main feed. Then eventually we're going to have, obviously, our profile, right? And what else do we talk about on the features list here? We won't talk about block lists right now. That'd be part of profile, maybe. Friends and sharing also may be part of profile. Messaging, that's important. So we need some messaging here. We're going to need a screen. We're going to need a whole flow for that. Okay. What else? Saw some interesting stuff over here. Allow the user to do on screen. Okay. So we missed one big vital thing here. And that is content creation. There's a whole flow just for content creation. And then that's going to include sharing. It's going to include shooting your video, saving your video. Are you going to allow people to have drafts of videos, right? Where they're going to find the drafts, where the drafts are going to live. Is there going to be a drafts page? All that stuff. So many things that people just don't think about when you're building a product to make a product useful. Things that people want, things that people expect in a good product. And that's before you get, I mean, that's completely different than the UI, the actual user interface itself, the branding, the personality. This is just, if I'm using this product, I expect these things to happen. I expect to be able to do these things. Obviously, like logging out, you got to be able to log out of a product. That gets forgotten more than you'd think. Just people forget to put the log out anywhere, you know? Who knows? So, and then, I mean, I'm not going to put sharing. You know, it's funny, when the mobile app revolution started, we started building applications and you were sharing things. All these default built-in ways that you share things from iOS and Android weren't there. So there was no pre-built software development kit. There was no pre-built designs or modules or things we could tie into that would feed in Facebook, Instagram, and automatically share to those, right? Because now if you go hit share, right, the thing pops up at the bottom and you choose where you want to share it. And you have dozens and dozens, like every application on your damn phone, you have that opportunity. When we started designing mobile applications, we had to put every single one of those in by hand, and we had to manually connect to the APIs, and it was just a huge amount of work. It was a lot of stuff. Things are so much easier now. So sharing now is a much easier deal. So we don't have to design sharing flows anymore, and that's pretty freaking great. Okay. So, I think more or less, yeah. I mean, this is pretty much our high-level flow. There's other stuff that you're going to need to have, like that's really boring, TOS and privacy, but it's vital, right? You need your terms of service and your privacy in an application. Depending on the complexity of your application, you may need help and support, right? That matters, because you got to figure out who's going to do that. How's that going to be? Is it just going to be a frequently asked questions list? Is it going to be chat-driven, AI-driven? Is it going to be done through intercom or drift? Who's going to do that? How's that going to happen? Are you even going to offer it, right? That type of thing. See, what else does an application typically have? What else do we think we may need to have here that's going to really help us out? I mean, I think that's a good start. Now, here's another dose of product building. You can't really figure out everything during the UX phase or during the strategy phase. You just can't. You try to figure out as many things as you can. You try to get 80, 90% of the way there. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that new stuff's going to be added in. There's going to be a whole stuff you never thought about that's going to have to be created, and that you're going to have to figure out whole flows for, or just choose to ignore altogether and deal with whatever ramifications that creates amongst your users. So, say we've created this. This is a very high level site map or app map. You could do it this way. The other way you could do it, which is really useful, could be literal boxes, right? So I come here, and just so you know, this whole time I've been trying to figure out a name for this product in my head, and I have not figured out one yet. but it's something there. I'm going to come up with one in a minute. I'm going to choose blue because it's about voting and social justice and America. So I'm going to get this. Oops, and I've got this. I'm going to real quickly turn my do not disturb back on for an hour. There we go. So I'm going to come here. This is going to be the name of our app. Do it this way. Actually, I'm going to do a frame. I'm not even going to do that. See? I'm going to do a text. There we go. App name. Another text. I'm going to add an auto layout to this. There we go. I'm going to make my fill blue, like we just talked about. America. And I'm going to make the text white. There we go. And I'm just going to use my rule of, it doesn't matter. There we go. Okay. So this is our app name. Now, naming an app. How do you do it? Well, one of our favorite things to do is go to the source, right? Is to figure out what it is we can find that means whatever it is we're trying to say, right? So if it's patriotism, it's maybe going about looking through the thesaurus, finding different words that mean patriotism. That then sometimes leads to going into other languages, right? Finding a foreign word, a Spanish word, a Greek word, an Italian word that means something similar. That can be fun. Sometimes it's about creating a word that doesn't mean anything really and just trying to come up with a concept, right? eBay. What is eBay? It's an electronic bay because it's a place where you buy stuff. Who knows? So that can be helpful. You know, one of the things that I can tell you is number one, right? How that works. I'm already thinking multiple points. First, don't get too hung up on the name because at this point, you've never done a trademark search. You've never done a research to find out if anybody's got that name. You don't know what domains are available. You don't know what Twitter accounts are available, right? You don't know what it's going to look like in different formats and if it's going to be catchy. So, number one. Number two, what's it about? Well, you have to decide, is my product going to always be this or is it going to grow over time? So, if we're looking to create a TikTok style social media application built for getting out the vote and social awareness, is that all we ever want it to be? Or do we want it to grow over time? Do we want it to eventually just become a TikTok? What's our goal here? Is our goal to help with social issues? Or is our goal to build a really big, expensive company that's worth a bunch of money that maybe gets bought one day by somebody who just wants our audience, right? So what your name is can matter. Part of the reason we're named Rock Sauce was because we didn't want to just do mobile apps, which is what we started off with. We called it Rock Sauce because we wanted to be able to do everything, and that Rock Sauce didn't mean anything. I mean, it just literally meant the opposite of weak sauce. It meant that, you know, that feeling when you look at something and you go, man, that's badass. That's what Rock Sauce meant to me. And so that's why we called ourselves Rock Sauce, because we could own that word. Twitter is a word that gets owned. eBay is a word that can get owned, right? Car names, right? They sound like real words, but they're not quite real words. So you can come up with whatever. Another fun thing to do in naming is to come up with people's names. So finding a fun name that Rebecca, Janice, Rick, Toby, who knows? A name that doesn't mean anything. You think about Alexa, right? That's a whole product that's named after a person because it's got a personification. And then there's made up words that don't mean anything. Like you can just come up with a word that literally means nothing, that doesn't even sound like anything else. And that can be a name. Ultimately, you don't want your name to be confused with another product on the market. You want to be able to own that domain. Like you want to try to get the .com if you can. And you want it so when someone searches Google for your product name, you show up. You don't want someone else to show up and they're suddenly fighting for that right. And yes, I know. There are other products called Rock Sauce. I get that now. I didn't really... I know more about naming now that I've ran a company and helped build 300 plus products than I did at the beginning when I named Rock Sauce. So you want to have an app name that's going to be fun. And last thing, names are going to change all the time, even up until the very, 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 very last second. I mean, last second. So start off with a placeholder, and then it's completely okay if it grows over time, right? So I'm going to call this something silly that is based on our goal, but recognizing that I may end up changing it as I think about it more. So I'm going to call this Americas. Well, that just says Americas. So see, already I type it out and I'm like, that's stupid. Don't do that. I don't know. Naming is tough. But I'm going to call it America. There we go. Right now, I'm just calling it America. And I've already changed it again. What about this? Unum. There we go. I'll start with that. From the concept of e pluribus unum, which is out of many is one, the basic concept of the United States. We all bring our concepts together. We bring our different opinions. We create the melting pot, all that good stuff. So right now I'm calling it unum, which is not a great word. It sounds weird. It feels odd in my mouth, but it works for this very second. Okay, so this is our sitemap. So now I can come here and I can go, what are all my sections of my app? Sorry. Selecting the frame there. There we go. Like we talked about, we have login. And we have onboarding. Main feed. Basically, all the stuff you see up here. What we're doing is we're creating a sitemap. And the reason we do that is because now we'll be able to start to add subsections to it. We're trying to high level design out what our product's going to be. Because, again, our goal is to figure out what are our major buckets that we know we have to work on, what are the feature sets we have to worry about, how do they apply to different user personas, what are the user stories for each one of these. These are all the things we need to know. And it helps us really see the scope of the product itself. And it's going to be easier than just finding it by a screen here, right? Some of the stuff we talked about lives within these. Like when we talked about friends, and we talked about block lists, and we talked about content creation, and we talked about the ability to share to social media networks or to create a video, a political ad with on-screen graphics and that type of stuff. That stuff's going to live within each one of these buckets instead. So I'll make this a different color, and I'll choose Rock Sauce Coral because I like it. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. And then what I would do is I have launch screen onboarding flow. Oops, I meant to do launch here instead of login. Oh, and look at that. Along the way, what did I forget? Well, I did forget that to make things easier on myself, I'm going to create an auto layout frame here. I'm going to create a new one. So onboarding main profile. There we go. And then I'm going to do login, sign up. There we go. Because that matters. And I'm going to center this. There we go. So, and there's a lot of cool plugins you can use for Figma that start to draw out arrows and things like that. So one of the ones I like to use is called Autoflow, right? And Autoflow will load up here. And with Autoflow, I can easily create an arrow from here to here. I think, oops, sorry. Well, I'm trying to do this, but Autoflow is not doing what I want it to do. So it should be creating an arrow, and it's not. I'm not certain why it's not creating an arrow. I should be able to click right there, and it's not working. But you want to go from A to B. And I create a flow from one to the other. And that just lets me know how all these different items work together. Because inside of each one of these, I'm going to have additional options. So launch won't have much, but onboarding will have a lot of other stuff, right? So it'll be explaining why you want the product, who the product's for, how you use the product, and then from there, it'll give you an option, typically, to either start using or log in, create account. Right. How's it go from there? Okay. As you can see here, and then you'll have your main feed, which will have its own sections, and these will start to grow out over time. And this is how you start to build out your product. Now, when we come back to the next free design hour, I will have actually probably gone ahead and figured out all these, so we can actually get into the design meat itself. But you know, it was important to put this stuff into context and figure out what we're doing, because I didn't just want to design something. I think there's probably a lot of folks out there who are showing you how to design things, but you need to know why you're designing it and who you're designing it for and whether it's useful. Because what buttons are on the screen, what features you're going to have, they all need to come back and service your goal. And our goal here is going to be to get people to vote. Now, by the time we meet next time, people have already voted. And we may or may not have a new president and new senators and all that fun stuff. And that's cool. But guess what's going to happen in just 1 year? Be another vote, y'all. And another chance to elect new people and have fun. So the concept never goes away. And social justice and helping people out with their problems and what they're doing, helping bring justice to issues that need light, it's not something we should ever be scared to do. And so if we're going to have a product like this, we need to think, well, does it work when we're not just around election season? Right? And so I like the idea of continuing the conversation past that point, past the point of, well, we had an election. Is it still useful? Well, we need to have a relevant product. What good is it ever going to do us to have a product that's only useful once per year, or that's only useful once every 4 years? It's not going to do any good. Even if your goal is not to be rich or sell it to Amazon or Google or whomever, you need the product to sustain itself so it can continue to get better and better and serve its job. So we'll need to figure out features that are going to work throughout the entire situation. I'll also figure out how to use this Autoflow plugin, because again, I don't know why it's not working like it was. But it was really cool that it's not. But theoretically, you should be able to click here and click here. I should ask somebody on my team. They're way better with Figma than I am. I'm going to try each button. I'm going to try Control. That didn't work. I'm going to try clicking here and then clicking Alt. Option. That didn't work. I'm going to try Command. And that didn't work. Last thing I'm going to try is Shift. Does Shift work? Shift worked. There it is. Figured it out. Woohoo. Way to go, me. So talk about UX. It should tell me here what to do. Like, I shouldn't have to go somewhere else and figure out how the heck to use an Autoflow plugin. The UX on this product itself should list here for me how you use it, so that I'm not sitting here on a live stream going, you do some buttons and things work. But see, now you can see I can come here and basically create up my flows and how each thing connects with each other. And that's useful, right? Because we care about how things interact with each other. And your developers need that, your designers need that, and your UX team is definitely going to need that. Because from onboarding, we go to this, and then to that, and to this. And you can go in and adjust the arrows, you can change the color, you can do all sorts of cool stuff like that. But for now, we're just going to do this. Just like you can see here, I'm actually delete these arrows because they went in an area I didn't want them to go, because I didn't choose the frame I chose the word inside the frame. So I'm going to come here to onboarding. I'm going to choose this frame. Oop. And cool. But look at that. That's one of the reasons you use Autoflow, because you could have just drawn these arrows by yourself. But one of the benefits of Autoflow is that when I do things like this, because I do want these to all be centered with each other because of OCD, and I need to have that happen. Well, I don't know why they didn't center. But when you center items together, theoretically, they should do that. Now, from this, we have the option of going to start using through the main feed. That creates a flow, or create an account, which takes us to the login sign-up flow, right? And so you can start to see how you figure out how your product's going to work together. I'll close this out. But as I mentioned, one of the benefits of Autoflow should be theoretically that if I center things, they reshape, but they didn't because I didn't have Autoflow open. So plugins are just a whole interesting bag here. But I can manually center them, I guess, if I can't center them with the center button. And you may not like the way some of the stuff looks, so you just go back and change it later. Boom. But these are really good. There's a lot of tools out there that already exist for creating flows. You have mind mapping tools that are out there, things like that. But it's nice to be able to use something like Figma that you may already know really well to do these things, to also do these things. All right. So I didn't want this to necessarily be a tutorial, a Figma Friday, as it were, on how to use Autoflow, but it kind of became that, and I apologize for that. More so than it became a design hour. But that's going to let me finish up with something I think is important, which is the whole concept of what is design thinking and what does it mean exactly? Because I often have some problems of my own of trying to figure out what design thinking means. Like, how does it mean design? Phrase actually say what it does, that type of stuff. So let's talk about this. It's free design hour. Does that mean that we're only going to be pushing pixels around the screen? Not necessarily. Design is not just UX, UI, branding, fonts, logos, colors. When we talk about design thinking and what it is that you have to do when you build a product or a project of some kind, it means bringing the critical methodologies that designers typically use to a problem. So what are the things designers often do? Well, we ask why. We ask, who's it for? Where's it going to be used? How's it going to be used? How much is it going to cost? Why does anybody even want this thing? Will they actually use it? What's going to make them abandon it? Right? We do that when we're thinking of designs and when we're creating interfaces or products. And those questions are really important. But it's not just those questions. Because design tries to get to the root of why something's going to be the way it is and what it is you're trying to build and how those whys and what's work together. Design thinking is all about that. It's about using critical analysis and strategic thinking to really get down to, are you just deluding yourself into feeling you're building the right kind of product or the right kind of thing, where you're solving problems the right way? A lot of times what happens is we come into a product and we come into a problem. So a company may come to us or an entrepreneur may come to us and they don't know the way they want to solve it yet. They haven't figured that out. They just know that there's a problem that exists. One of the ones I like to talk about because it's so weird. It's so tough to grab on the edges is safety. Companies come to us A few have, and they've said, we've got safety issues. We need to find ways to make our workplace more safe. And when you think about it, safety is a pretty complicated problem. I mean, theoretically, on paper, you know what to do. Don't run sharp scissors. Wear your hard hats. Wear your safety gear. Put your goggles on. Wear gloves. Keep your hands away from things that are spinning around really quickly, right? Like, we know all these things. But inevitably, people aren't wearing their hard hats, right? Or they don't keep their hands away from the sharp spinning turbines that will suck them in and, turn them into hot dogs. And just telling them doesn't always work. In fact, most of the time it doesn't, because if just being told something worked, then we would never have arguments with kids, have to ground children. We'd never have to create marketing. We'd never have to convince anybody of anything. It would just be told, hey, don't do this thing, and they would automatically do it. So when you talk about safety, you start to look into a lot of problems. And how do you solve them? How do you get people to want to be more safe? Well, could you create a marketing campaign internally in a company? Right? Posters, that type of thing. Sure. Now, can those be cheesy? Can you have a set of posters that nobody wants to look at that are, don't forget to be safe, we're counting on you? And that could work. It's not going to work with most people, right? Especially Americans. Americans are cynical, and we just go, oh, yeah, I don't care about that. So maybe you find you find an interesting way to approach that subject matter, and that becomes your marketing message. And through that marketing message, you back it up with other things that are tied to it. So if you say safety is important, I don't know how we can do this without being cheesy, then you recognize that you're going to be cheesy. You steer into the cheesy. Maybe you create cat posters, right? A kitty with a cast on, right? Hang in there posters, but oh no, what if motivational cat posters went the wrong way? And the cat wasn't being safe, and the cat ended up hurting themselves. That's a whole campaign. And then you back it up with, okay, well, the posters are there, but how else can we make sure that people are being safe? Well, we could send out various different emails that tie into the campaign. We create a mobile application that checked into things. We could even go a little bit further and use wearable technology and IoT stuff to help out, right? So maybe you start to put sensors in the hard hats to detect if they've been put on someone's head, and they detect temperature and whether or not somebody's actually wearing it, for how long they're wearing that stuff, and that feeds back into a database. Guardrails, every work site has a guardrail. Well, a lot of people have smartwatches of some kind, right? So what if you could put in a sensor in the smartwatch that would detect how far you were from the guardrail, and based on that proximity, it would know whether or not you were grabbing onto it, and even by the jostling of it, it would know. Right? Are you holding on to it, or are you just walking beside it? What are you doing? And then that could feed into a system. Things like that can come into play. That data can then be analyzed, brought in with AI, and looked at and gone, okay, so what we've determined is, over the course of the last year from collecting all of this different data, that people who don't have access to our cool kitty cat posters, who didn't download the app, who didn't hold on to the guardrail, had a 96% chance of having an expensive workplace accident that hurt them and caused a big settlement for our company. So now we take that data, and now we can identify the individuals who match those criteria, right? And then you can go out and reach out to those people and say, hey, so let's have a conversation. We've noticed that you haven't done these things, and we know these things can tend to lead to a safety accident. What can we do to fix that? Now, that's all design thinking. That's not just the default way of solving the problem. The default way of solving the problem is to literally say, we have rules, do your rules. You follow them. You want a job, you follow your rules. But that's not how humans are motivated, and that doesn't necessarily get them to get the job done. And so you start to figure out not just what could you do, right, a motivational campaign, but then you go, well, but that will be cheesy. People won't think about it. So how do we make them actually pay attention to it? This would be funny and humorous. People respond to funny and humorous, and they remember it. And so therefore, if they remember the kitty cat with a broken leg, they're more likely to put on their safety gear, right? People don't want to wear the smartwatch that detects the thing because they don't want to get in trouble. But maybe you create an incentive program to where those who do it the most get some kind of reward, right? They get to go to a big safety conference at the end of the year. I don't know. They get something, right? A bonus, a stipend, extra vacation days, whatever it is. Maybe they get the fact that they didn't hurt themselves, and X number of people hurt themselves each year. There's an average. That average equals out to 3 days of missed work. So they get 3 extra vacation days, right? So now that's an incentive program that's also tied into the whole thing. Now, when you come to what people consider to be traditional design, that's really just designing a poster or designing a mobile app or something like that. But design thinking and what agencies like Rocksauce and other companies do is really try to figure out, how do you motivate action? How do you communicate a goal and motivate the action of individuals so they will do it? Not just where they may do it, where they will do it. And you test those things. So a kitty cat poster would never be rolled out without testing it first. Do you see? All right. So thank you for tuning in. Didn't get to do that much actual pixel-based design work, but we talked a whole lot about the product design, like the actual nuts and bolts of product design. I didn't expect to do that. Like I said, we're kind of going by the seat of our pants here, and that makes it fun. We go down interesting roads. So you're coming along the journey with me. We have the initial stages of a product here. We're going to get into actual design work next week, promise. But we wanted to get that flow down. And now you understand how that design thinking methodology works there. So if you got a product that you want help with, if you have kitty cat posters that you need designed and you want a company who understands the vital importance of kitty cat posters, you can contact us. You can go to our website, rocksaucestudios.com or rocksauce.studio. See us on Twitter at rocksauce, Instagram. You can email us at howdy@rocksaucestudios.com. Call us, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the good stuff. We're here to help you out in a lot of different ways. So with that, I'm going to see you next time on Free Design Hour. If you have a product you want us to help you out with directly, just let me know. I'm happy to do so. If not, I'm just going to keep riffing, and we're going to build out this terribly named Unum app that will not be called Unum after this. It's going to have a different name. I'll just come up with a better one. But with that, my name is Q Manning. This has been Free Design Hour. I'll see you next time. Adios.